want to talk about victims, and we hear people talk about victims and oftentimes mischaracterize what victims say, but both from anecdotal conversations and in numerous studies, victims overwhelmingly want two things: to make sure what happened to them doesn't happen to them or anyone else again, and support and help to get beyond and to restore what was lost or damaged or hurt. And we don't do a good job from a governmental standpoint or as a community supporting people who have been victimized. And so often that feeds into very unhealthy outcomes later on down the line. What can you do in your capacity as a city council person to better support victims of crime?
Yeah. So great question. I think the best. So all of these issues, highly complex, nuanced. So let's double click, dive a little deeper. So we talked about the imperative a moment ago to, from my perspective, to hire more police, public safety, empower them, set and enforce the highest standards, and hold them accountable. Also, the co-equal important policy plan that I have to stand up, fund, and implement, these civilian-led responses. But also, a very, very important part of this whole equation is prevention. Making sure that people don't have to experience crime to begin with. Making sure that crime victims, if you will, not only they don't feel the sentiment and have the experience of not wanting that to happen again to someone else, but also they don't feel the sense of we need to kind of restore and bring a sense of whole and completeness to whatever traumatic experience happened to them. So prevention is really important, and crime prevention is really important. And why is there crime? Well, it's complex, not just one thing, but rising inequality, lack of access to resources, unequal opportunities, poverty, lack of mental behavioral health services and support. And I think building out programs and services anchored and oriented around addressing those root causes will go a long way in preventing crime to begin with, and minimizing our impact. Because yes, we need effective prevention and address the root causes, if you will, but we also need to make sure that we have our whole policy plans and funding strategy reflects, making sure we can contemplate and resource the realities of today and have good interventions as well. So, all of those things must and should coexist in parallel, in my view.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify on that last one. I think your points about prevention and your plans to hire more police certainly speak to some other aspects, but specifically when it comes to supporting victims, unfortunately, while you're working towards prevention and doing the other things, there are going to be more people who are victimized, unfortunately, even while we're reducing crime. But what could you do to better support victims, people who have been victimized and people who do need help?
Yeah, so great question. The number one thing is making sure we have effective intervention and response capabilities. And, we do that in part through making sure we have well-resourced, trained set of public safety apparatus, firefighters, police, paramedics, and to make sure that people have the responses that they need and expect. Making sure if someone has been victimized by property crime or whatever it is, that they can reasonably expect an officer to show up and take a report and hopefully investigate that and follow up and show up in a timely manner. But also, depending on the nature of the victimization, for crime victims, we also need to do a better job of making sure people have access to services and trauma trauma response and support services, and they're better taken care of from a mental health perspective as well, and help them
Gotcha.
navigate and better help them navigate everything. Like, talking about crime in abstract, without a specific like fact pattern, it's a little tricky, but I do think at a high level there is a huge opportunity to better help people navigate the various systems, structures, services, and programs that currently exist today for victims, and then build out and expand those as well.
I see.